This exercise is going to be adding to the transformations that we were covering in the last exercise, and I wanted to give everyone a few more processes to work with in Illustrator in order to create their image, their text as image poster. So this is going to be a continuation of the last exercise where you're using a sentence to illustrate a poster and not use any other image other than the text and the type itself. So I wanted to show another example of an artist that works primarily with text. And so this artist is Sang Quinoa, and he's a contemporary artist. And he currently has a show at the Guggenheim in New York. And so this was it opened in December of 2016. So he's actively creating work right now. And so what he does with his imagery and with his text is he pushes the envelope even more than Barbara Kruger did, where he is actually developing designs and images and a visual aesthetic that is communicating ideas that is in connection with the text, but the text, the letters themselves are forming images that communicate meaning. So, and in this particular example, this piece, it's these cultural meanings. So there's these designs, and if you zoom out of them, they're of different types of flowers, and they have a different cultural significance. And they are in direct opposition to what the words themselves are saying. So he's working with the images that the words are creating, and the ideas that those are communicating in juxtaposition with and in contrast with the actual meaning of the text and the words. So he's playing with these different layers of meaning and communicating this sense of contrast through his work. And so we're going to learn a couple of ways to create images and designs using text in Illustrator, even more than what we've already been working with. So this is the poster that I have been working with so far, using my quote, my sentence, which is people are trapped in history and history is trapped in them. And this is actually by James Baldwin. So I wanted to show a couple more processes here. And this could be things that you decide you want to add to your poster, or maybe you see a process that would really work for something that you've been trying to do and you haven't been able to quite do yet. Or maybe you are feeling good about the transformations that you've done already, and this is just good knowledge to have in terms of using text in Illustrator and there's a lot of different processes that you can apply to text in Illustrator. So I'm going to try and isolate this. Okay. So the first thing I want to show is how to create a text wrap. So I showed everyone in the last exercise how to fit a block of text into an area, and then I'm also going to show how you can basically create negative space or have text fit around some shape. So I'm going to take this shape. This is really simple. I'm going to go up to Object, go to Text Wrap, and say Make. So what this is saying is that there is a boundary around this object that any kind of text object is going to wrap around, as opposed to either appearing like it's under the object or over the object based on where it is positioned in the layer. So I'm going to take this and show. So this produces an interesting effect, and you can also make whatever you are wrapping the text around transparent. So if you select that object, you could go over here to its properties, and for where it says fill, you could just say none. And then that leaves just what ends up looking like some negative space. And then again, you can continue, I gotta find that path. You can distort and edit that object and transform that object, and even move the object, and it will just retain that text path. And if you decide that you don't want that text or that text wrap, so if you decide you don't want that, and let's say that this was an element that is a big part of your composition, so you don't necessarily want to delete it, you can just go up to, once you have that object selected, you can go back to text wrap and then just say release. And then that just makes it a normally behaving object with no text wrap on it. Okay. So the next thing I want to show is how to do a text blend. And this is something that I think is really cool. So again, this is taking the properties and the abilities of Illustrator and the fact that it's using vectors, and it's able to you do lots of operations based on the different properties that vectors retain. So vectors are based on geometries, and so because these are all these shapes, and this applies to text as well, Illustrator is looking at these as very complex shapes, and they're able to do a lot of geometric processes on these different shapes. And again, it's just a very different set of abilities than what Photoshop can do with pixels. So I'm going to take people, and I'm going to blend that into history. I'm going to make these a little bit bigger just so people can see what I'm talking about. Let me zoom in here. Okay, so I talked about paths in the modules from last week, or sorry, blends in the modules from last week, and I want to show that you can actually apply these to text as well. So I'm going to go over here to my blend tool. I'm going to double click it just to see what the options are. I think I want there to be 6 steps, and then I'm going to select the P in people and then go over to the H in history, and this way it's going to go basically letter to letter until you run out of letters. But I think, yeah, so there's one extra letter in history, so the Y is going to kind of come out of nowhere. But for instance, I'll just do this now. Okay, so what this does is this creates, it's morphing the geometry of people, of the word people, and trying to turn it into the word history. And this is what I was saying about, since there's an extra letter, that Y just kind of appears from nowhere, and or the E just kind of turns into both the R and the Y. And this isn't perfect, but I do think it is a really interesting ability and process, and there could be a lot of potential here for creating a poster that is really using text more as an image, because you have this interesting transformation. And then the other interesting thing and great, like the flexible thing about this process, is when you keep these things as text objects, you can actually go in and edit the text still. So you can't edit the in-between areas until you expand the blend, which I talked about last week, but you can edit these final shapes. So let's say you wanted to decide to edit one of the beginning or the starting words. You're actually able to do that on the fly, and then it will produce new results. So this is a very flexible process. And again, you can also, you can apply these types of changes to all Illustrator objects. I'm gonna go and select this, make that orange. So now this is not only blending and transforming the shapes, but it's also transforming the colors. Okay. So the last process I'm going to talk about now is it's called creating an envelope distortion. And one way to think about this is, instead of fitting a block of text into a certain area, you can actually morph and distort the letters so that they bend and fold into a specific area. So instead of it being fitting within the boundaries of a circle, but then retaining the normal paragraph properties of that block of text, you're able to fit actual words and change the shape of the letters. So I'm going to bring this back over here. I'm going to make a triangle-esque, trapezoidal-esque polygon here. So I want to fit people into this shape, but I don't want it to just, and I can show you what happens if I were to just fit this as an area type tool. Oops. I could have it say people. Let me zoom in here. And I could change the font of this to 72, but really it's just fitting this in as best it can within this trapezoid without distorting the shape of the letters. And that's not what I'm really trying to do here. So now I'm going to take people. I'm going to move this here. So I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to go up to Object, and I'm going to go to Envelope Distort. And I have a couple of different options here. I can make with a warp, I can make with a mesh, or I can make with top object. So I'm not going to use the top object because I want people to fit and be distorted to fit this trapezoid. I don't want the trapezoid to distort and try and fit into people. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to move this back. So remember, that's moving the arrangement on the layer. So you can either right click it with your mouse and then go to send to back. Or the shortcut key for that is Command and then the bracket. And then I'm going to again select both of those, go to Envelope Distort and say make with top object. And so now I have people fitting into that trapezoid. And the same way that you can edit effects after you have applied them to an object and it retains the original object, you can go through and by double clicking you can actually edit the text as well. And if you are wanting to then further distort these shapes, you would go up to Object and you would go to Envelope Distort and then you would say Expand. And there, doing that, you lose the ability to edit it or edit the original word, but you are then able to, using the Direct Selection tool, you're able to then make even smaller changes to the shapes that the Envelope Distort created. And this actually goes, relates to the last little step I'm going to show everyone how to do. And that is, so all this font, all these text objects are still are retaining the properties of them being a text object. So you're able to go in and edit them. You're able to change the letters, and then you're able to make those changes. So this is great because it allows you to make changes as you're working on things. And if you want to change certain words, you can do that. And where this isn't ideal is when you are working with things that are going to be printed and you are trying to send them to a printer or trying to print them on a different computer than the one that you have maybe at your house, and you have a lot of fonts that maybe don't carry over. So a way, and the other reason why you might want to not have these be text objects is, as you can see, when I select the text object and I have this direct selection tool, I can't Illustrator treats text objects differently than they do just shapes. And so if I wanted to, say, extend the leg of this H up, which I could do if it was just a shape, I can't do that as long as it's still a text object. So again, it's just important for you to know which is ideal for what you're trying to do. So I know that I'm not going to edit this anymore, and I want to be able to transform this H more than I'm able to by just transforming a text object. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to go up to type. I'm going to go to create outline. So what this does is this takes your text object and it turns it into shapes, which you can then edit as though they are shapes, but you cannot edit them anymore as text. So I'm going to create outlines, and now when I have my direct selection tool selected, I can go and I can extend this H all the way up. But I cannot double click on this and use the text tool to edit these letters, because these are no longer, Illustrator is no longer seeing this as text. So when I select it, I'm not getting any of the font options that I was earlier. Now Illustrator is just seeing this as a shape object. All right, so that is it for these second level of transformations, and these are to help with this exercise of creating text as an image. And these are different transformations that really begin to push the idea of text as an image even further. So it's giving you the capability to create designs and images that take on a visual meaning beyond just what the words themselves are saying. Okay, so save this Illustrator file and follow the posted instructions to export and submit this exercise.